Hi, my name is Neil Joshampule, and I'm bringing you this short presentation on SQL Server reporting services and how to create a parameterized report in SSRS. So first, let's go into what is SSRS. SQL Server Reporting Services is a report generating tool from Microsoft. It's used for generating reports. And what is a parameterized report now? Well, a parameterized report uses input values to complete report or data processing. With a parameterized report, you can output the value of a report based on values that are set when the report runs. Okay, so let's get to it now. So I'm going to start up Visual Studios, bids. So it's starting, and now initially I'm going to show you how a existing parameterized report looks, and then I'm going to actually build one and show you how to build one. Okay, so let's preview it. In this particular parameterized report, what's going to happen is that we're going to have a drop down. So the drop down will actually help build based on the value that's selected within the drop down. You'll be able to filter out your data results. However, you don't necessarily have to have a drop down. It could just be a text box if you don't set the value. So here's our drop down, which are email addresses, and based on the email address that's selected, we'll get the user name, first name, last name, and middle name that belongs to that email address. So while that's loading, because it takes a while because it's kind of slow, I'm going to start up another instance of bids. Okay, and I think it should be loading. And there we go. So Aaron 15 has the first name Aaron and the last name Foster, and he has no middle name. Okay, so let's build this report. So first, in order to build it, we'll go to File, New, Project. We will start a new report server project, and we're going to call this Parameterized Reports. Go to OK. And now we're left with a Solution Explorer and an empty reports project. So we're going to go to Add, New Item, and we're going to create a new report. So we will call this report Parameterized Report, and we add it. So now we have our report, and we will be able to see the report data tab. So the next step is to create a data source. So we're going to add a data source. Go to Edit. If you don't have a shared data source already set up, I'm going to use my local host, so I'm just using a dot. And I'm going to use AdventureWorks 2008 R2. Test a connection, it works. OK, and OK. So now we have our data source. Now we have to add our data sets. So the fields I want to display are from the person table. So let me add a table in Query Designer. I'll go to find the table called person, and I will add it. And then we close it. And the columns I want to add are first name, middle name, and last name. Okay. Okay. Now we have access to this data from that particular query. We can access all first names, all middle names, and all last names from that particular data set from that query in our actual report. So now I'm going to add a table. So now we have a table, an empty table in SSRS. So I'm going to drag the first name attribute and put it in the first column. middle name attribute and post in the middle name column, and the last name attribute and post it in the last name column. Now I'm going to run it and show you what happens. So it's running, it's taking a while, and it's going to just give us a list of all the first names, middle names, and last names from that query. However, we don't want all the values. What we want is a subset of the values. So how would we go about doing that? In order to do that, we'd have to edit our query and add a filter. So where we would go to our query designer and add the table which we're going to filter on, which will be email address. So we add the email address, close it. Okay, so now we'd have where person.email address table, which has an email address column, is equal to a filter called email address. And now we have altered our query to have a variable, which I've just highlighted, called email address. So it's dependent on a particular parameter. So it will filter this query based on that parameter we have just put in. So I go to OK, and so now it's filtering on that parameter. And as you can see, the parameter automatically showed up over here. So if we were to run the report right now, what we would get is a text column. So we could enter a value in this text column, which would be the email address, and then we could review the report, and it would give us a list of results which have an email address of A. And since none of the email addresses associated with first name, middle name, and last name have the email address of A, we get nothing back. However, what we want to do here is actually limit, make that email addresses a drop-down list so that the user won't have the freedom to enter a email address. So we can go to query, create a new data source, add a new table, email address, add, close, email address. We added the email address. Okay. So now we have created a new data set called dataset 2, which has only the email address field, the data. So now we're going to associate that dataset 2 with this parameter. We're going to limit the results of that parameter to the dataset 2. So we go to available values, get values from query, dataset 2, email address, email address. We go to OK. So basically what we're doing is saying all parameter values of email address are are limited to whatever is in dataset 2. So go to OK, and then we will go to preview. And now we're going to get a drop-down list with the email addresses that we limited the parameter to, and based on the email address we choose, we will be able to get the first name, middle name, and last name of that particular user. So as you can see here, we have a drop-down list. We have an email address, Aaron18. I'm going to select that, and I'm going to view all first name, middle names, and last names associated with that name. It takes a little bit of time because the computer is a bit slow. However, if I deployed it to a web server, it would be a bit faster. I could also use various things. And as you can see, we now, based on the email address that was selected, we have the first name, middle name, and last name. And that is how you create a parameterized report. I hope you learned something from this, and that is all for now.